How could it possibly go on this long? The Pickled Punks podcast. What ruined it? What ruined this movie?
Wiki. What ruined it?
What went wrong? Mm-hmm. What was the structural flaw? You mentioned earlier that you saw flaws in your first viewing of it, which you didn't see, and you thought it made more. It was a better movie, basically, after a couple of viewings. I didn't have that experience, so tell me, tell me what I'm missing.
So, from my experience, having watched it the second time, my main complaints weren't about the young male rapping or the precocious young female, although I generally find precocious children in movies completely annoying because most children are just idiots. You know what I'm saying? Like, and no fault of their own. Their experience is very minimal. And when you're 2 or 3 times their age and they're acting like they're 6 years old, it's because they're 6 years old and you're holding to a level that's just not even possible based on their age. So I generally don't like children. Beyond that, the reason why I had criticism the first time I watched it is because I was like, how did the grandmother, who is insane, know so much stuff about that primary family? Although they were counselors and information was exchanged, they were operating in a almost perfect way as the dialogue and story moved on. And I didn't pick up that they were from the insane asylum. Actually, the first thing I thought about when it first entered my mind, it was when they were driving, the grandfather was driving the 2 grandchildren and they passed the insane asylum and he said something about that. I was like, oh, they're fucking people from the insane asylum, because it's kind of a cliche in horror movies that it's insane people. So I was like, oh, it's possible what's going on. And then when the movie concluded, I was like, this fit too perfectly. Like, it felt like there was a lot of flaws. And when I watched it the second time, it was actually written well enough to where it kind of all fit together and it all worked itself out.
So nothing ruined it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So primary question, what ruined it? I would say what ruined it is that when I got the full grasp of the movie, and once the children got in the police car and the mother was there and they were going off and the music was playing, I was like, fantastic. That's a good ending to the movie. And then when the movie went on to the second sort of interview with the mother, and she went into what happened when her parents left and the fight and stuff, you know, it added a little bit to the movie, but I think it subtracted more than it added. And I felt like that scene could have been cut. I think they could have just ended it with them driving away, and that would have been enough. I think the reason why, okay, my suggestion or my thought is the reason why the director left it in is because he doesn't give enough credit to the audience. And he's like, I got to put this in to really solidify what's going on in this movie, because the audience are idiots. And I felt like it almost discredited the audience that was watching the movie.
Brad, what ruined it, if anything?
Yeah, I think I kind of mentioned this when we were talking earlier, but I would say it was related to how anticlimactic it was. So maybe the pinnacle scene, like it just got a little too, maybe the doo-doo in the face, I think is maybe what, it just got a little too ridiculous. And it's like, the elements of fear were all there, you know, the randomness, the creeping around on all fours, you know, the hair over the face, the slamming of doors in the dark night, you know, all this sort of goofy stuff. But what really, it just didn't build up to anything. And then I was just over it.
Yeah.
Because I think I had a different reaction. Actually, the first time I thought it was more scary. And I think it might have been, we mentioned this because I watched it alone. But I had a very different reaction than you did the first time I watched it. And I found it less scary this time. But
yeah,
what ruined it for you, Brian?
Well, I agree with you. Kind of just saying what you said in different words. I think of the tension of a horror movie as kind of like a soundtrack, not actual music, but like the tension is the canvas, the background music of the film. And this movie just wasn't consistent in the way that it raised or lowered tension. You would have a scene, like you said, in the kitchen with the grandpa, a very high tension moment, which was suddenly ruined by the hilarity of a diaper in the face, or the kid saying something obnoxious or rapping in the middle of the film, and or the grandmother's butt cheek showing after that scene in the basement was really scary, but then she got out and she walked away and her ass cheek was hanging out like that. That's hilarious. And so there was not a symphony of tension playing in the background. It was not harmonious. And the other thing I'll say in the movie's defense is we did watch it with some very poor video quality. So the dark and the light scenes weren't, I think that might have affected the extent to which I could suspend my disbelief and kind of get into the film. So I'll give it that. Maybe, like you said, I think that it was scarier with a higher quality resolution. So that might have played something into it.
Yeah, if you're watching it like alone in the dark with a high quality resolution where it looked like what you were seeing was, a clear representation of what was really happening, then I think that you could get more involved in the movie. The way we watched it, it was the quality was so poor that you were visually detached the entire time. So you could never really get fully engrossed. I thought that, with the grandmother's butt cheek showing, although it was strange, I didn't find it necessarily humorous, although it's a woman's butt. But I felt that showed how, sort of like, confused or detached that the grandmother was from reality. And so she had no idea after doing that her whole ass was hanging out. I mean, how many times have you been outside and like your butt cheek was hanging out and you're
Zero.
like, oh, I didn't even notice. I mean, that to me, that showed a complete inability to understand and interact healthy with her environment. And so I was like, wow, it's even more bizarre. I mean, if you're walking around your mom's ass, okay, not even your mom. Okay. So like someone close in your family or even a stranger at work and their ass cheek is hanging out and they didn't know. And you had to point it out and you're like, oh, I had no idea. You'd be kind of like, is this person right? Like, is this person like drunk or
unacceptable?
Should they go home? Because that's most people can figure that out, that this is going on in their life and they can detect it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I thought that scene was cool under the house because, like, your thoughts are, how did she get down there? How did she know they were playing? What are her intentions if she catches one of them? Like, it was a very high tension scene, and at that point, you don't know that they're mental patients. So I guess maybe that was my problem, is that I didn't know to interpret it that way. I thought it was just like. Because the kid's reaction is kind of the reaction I had, this crazy woman with her ass hanging out. I didn't have the psychological, mental patient interpretation available to me.
And at the time, yeah. I think actually the children in the movie, although were annoying and were probably playing a part more than their character would allow based on the age in which they were in the movie, were relatively reasonable. Like, I think they acted in a reasonable way where it was easy to assume that it was appropriate in how they were, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought they were really phony. I think you're saying they're genuine.
I thought they were genuine.
Yeah, I found them really phony. That's why I had trouble getting into it. Like, they just seemed like actors to me. But I think I feel that with a lot of kids. Like, I don't really hang out with a lot of kids, so I don't know what they're really even like at that age. Maybe that's just they were so weird that I was like, people like this can't really exist and be like natural about it.
Yeah, I found them obnoxious and
a little too real.
Yeah. No, in my experience, kids don't talk like that and don't act like that and don't, I don't know.
I think it's a challenge to have children in movies because, as I said previously, being around children is kind of annoying because they just don't have the level of development to make conversation interesting. I find being around adults sometimes annoying because they are just act inappropriately or just don't understand things the same way that I would. with the child, not only you're working on personality, but you're also working on, only 8 years of experience. In the first 4 years, they had no idea what was going on. I mean, what's your first memory? Mine was kindergarten. So that means like the first 4 years of my life, I have no memory. I'm sure I said some stupid shit those 4 years.
You probably didn't say much.
Mine was riding my bike and having an accident on the street.
Traumatic. Were you hurt? Or you just like smashed into something?
I remember we did like the French wheelies where you stick your foot in the front wheel and pop it backwards, and I did that at like extremely high speed.
Oh, that's a bad move.
Did a flip. But I think that's my first memory.
So that's a great example. So like if that was your kid and he came to you and his face was all scarred up and he was like, I was going really fast and I shoved my foot into the front of my tire and I flipped over it.
Shit.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh my God, this is who I'm spending my time with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My kin.
Like one of my first memories was that like I was in San Francisco and I had bare feet because it was warm out and there's a bumblebee. And I was like, I want to step on this bumblebee. So I literally stepped on a bumblebee with my bare foot and I got stung. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? Again, I go running to my mother upset and she's like, what the?
Yeah.
This guy's stepping on bumblebees with bare feet.
Smack the crap out of him. Yeah. Well, there you go. What ruined it?
That ruined it.
That ruined it.